Okay, this will be page 40 in your math journal. Divide whole numbers by fractions. And just for space, I'm going to use the number sign for numbers so we can fit the whole title in here. Divide whole numbers by fractions. Okay, yesterday we went over the modeling on page 39, so we drew pictures of what we're doing. Now we're just going to use the algorithm, meaning the shortcut for us, to actually find the numbers without having to draw a picture every single time we do it. So, there are a couple things I need you to remember. Okay, skip one line and we're going to write about reciprocals again. So, reciprocal. Okay, the reciprocal is the inverse fraction. Okay, which is what, when we talk about flipping the fraction, we're talking about finding its reciprocal. Okay, the reciprocal is going to be something that's going to be very useful to us when we're dividing by fractions. Okay, now I want you to think back to what we learned about multiplication of fractions. When we multiplied fractions, we multiplied across the top and across the bottom. Well, division is just the opposite of multiplication. So let's write that. Division is, let's say the inverse, is the inverse of multiplication. So when we divide by a fraction, we can multiply by its inverse. Let's say multiply the dividend by the inverse, or by the reciprocal of the divisor. Okay, so that is the wording of all of it. But there's a little saying that a lot of you have already learned to help you remember to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, I want you to skip a line, and here's the shortcut memorization. Copy dot flip. Okay, so when you are dividing by fractions, copy dot flip is one way to remember it. Another way I learned when I was growing up was KFC. Keep the first. Or copy the first one. Meaning keep the dividend the same. You're not changing what you're dividing. Flip the second. So we're going to make the reciprocal of the second fraction, or the divisor. We're going to flip the second one. And then we change the sign. meaning we're going to change the sign from division to multiplication. All right, so those are two ways to think about it. Both are just ways to help your brain remember the order that you need to do stuff in. The most common error that people make is they'll flip the first fraction. They remember that they have to flip something, they just flip something and go on. You have to make sure you flip the divisor, never the dividend. All right, so let's try a couple of examples down here. Let's say we have 25, and we're going to be splitting that into groups of 5 sevenths. Okay. Keep the first, flip the second, change the sign. So I keep the first one, or copy the first. So I'm going to rewrite this as 25. And since I'm dealing with fractions, I'm just going to make it over 1. So I kept the first one the same. Now dot would be multiplying. We flip the second one, so I'm going to make this the reciprocal. So instead of 5 over 7, I'm going to change it into 7 over 5. And then my sign needs to change in the middle. So dot or an X times, as long as you know that you're multiplying. So this is the exact same thing as this, but the reason we like this, well, we already know how to multiply fractions. This makes it nice and easy on me. Once I get to this stage, cross cancel if I can. 5 and 25 share a 5 in common, so I'm going to divide this by 5. Or divide it by 5 and get 1. Divide this by 5 and get 5. 1 and 7 have nothing in common, so multiply across the top. And I get 35. Over 1 times 1 is 1. So in other words, there are 35 groups of 5 sevenths. I'm going to write that over here. Groups of 5 sevenths. That's what we found. There are 35 groups if I chop 25 whole units into groups of 5 sevenths. I can make 35 groups. I'm going to draw a line under these just so I don't accidentally mix my work up. Okay, so let's try another one. Skip a line. Let's do 12 divided by 9/10. Okay, I want to know how many group of 9/10 I can make out of 12. So, keep the first, which would be 12, and I'm just going to write it as 12 over 1. Flip the second. So I'm going to write 10 over 9. Change the sign. Or copy dot, dot meaning multiplication, flip. Whichever way you want to remember it, it doesn't matter as long as you always remember that the second one is the one you flip and you change the sign to multiply. So we are multiplying by the inverse. See if I can cross cancel anything here. 12 and 9 have a common factor of 3, so if I divide 12 by 3, I get 4. If I divide 9 by 3, I get 3. Okay, multiply across the top, I get 40. Multiply across the bottom, I get 3. Okay, this didn't turn out as beautiful as up here did, but I can divide 3 into 40 and see what I get. So 40 divided by 3. 3 goes into 4 one time. 3 goes into 10 3 times. And I get a remainder of 1. So my final answer would be 13 whole groups, and then I'd end up with 1/3 left over. Okay, let's try one more. Let's make this a story problem so you can see where you might use this. All right, let's do Jared Okay, Jared has 3 gallons of punch. Okay, Jared has 3 gallons of punch. He is dividing it into pitchers that hold 3/5 gallon each. How many pitchers does he need? I said 3/5. I'm changing this. I want it to be 4/5, so let's just make that a 4 here. Alright, 4/5 of a gallon each. How many pitchers does he need? Okay, what is our divisor and what is our dividend? What are we splitting up? When we do story problems, a lot of you have no problem when it's given to you like this. But when you have a story problem, you struggle because you don't take the time to think about what is being divided and what is doing the dividing. Okay? My dividend is the 3 gallons. This is what I am splitting up. I'm splitting it into what size groups? 4/5 of a gallon. That's my divisor. Okay, so setup is crucial. This is 3 being divided into groups of 4/5. Okay, if I'm taking 3 and I'm dividing it into groups of 4/5, this is where we can use our copy.flip or KFC to help us remember how to set it up correctly. So keep the first. So I'm going to keep 3 the same. I'm going to flip the second, or make this 5/4. And then I need to change the sign to multiply, or copy, dot, flip, whichever way helps you. Okay, see if I can cross cancel anything here. 5 and 1 have nothing in common. 3 and 4 have no common factors either, so there's no cross canceling here. So I'm going to multiply across the top and I get 15/4. So 15 divided by 4. 4 goes into 15 3 times. Minus 12 gives me 3. So that would give me a remainder of 3. So that would be 3 3/4 pitchers. However, does that answer the question? No, it says how many pitchers does he need? So if he's going to be doing that, that means I'm going to have 3 completely full pitchers, and one of them is going to be 3/4 full. But to answer the question, I'm going to say he needs 4 pitchers. Okay, make sure your handwriting is nice and neat.